Welcome back to another episode of Closing the Gap. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton, owner and founder of Hamilton Wealth Advisors. Blessed here today to have a man, Mr. Trevor Small, business strategist. I don't call him a tax preparer. He's an entrepreneurship coach. He's a managing partner for Management Solutions Enterprises. Graduate of Alabama State University. Hails from the illustrious city of Chicago, Illinois. Thankful and blessed to have him here today to share some knowledge and some wisdom with you. I've worked with him for some period of time with several clients, and been able to kind of watch him, work and be able to be a benefit and great value to not just me and my family, of course, but also to my clients and people around me. So I'll tell you, I'm not going to just bring somebody that's going to speak about it. I bring people that's going to be about it, and he can definitely, hear and elaborate, more about this himself and kind of what he does from a business planning perspective, from a tax strategy perspective, and bring some insight and some help and some education. So of course, my core beliefs are education and experience leads to proper execution. So we want to bring that today. Of course, I'm always going to bring you professionals, not people that just talking about doing it or social media experts, but people that actually pay their bills and feed their family, having a true specialty and actually helping to educate and putting people in better financial positions. So thankful for you being here today, brother. Share some time and energy with us. So I want to go back a little bit, man, and kind of know where you hail from, and know you're an alumni of the great University of Alabama State University. But how did you kind of get into accounting? What led you into that path of business planning and tax strategy?
Well, first, thank you for that intro. I feel like I need the powder to dump on my hands like LeBron now, the way you do that. But as you mentioned, I'm from Chicago, and I started my company when I was a sophomore in college.
Oh, wow.
So I used to be the president of the National Black Accountants Association, and kind of what sparked me to kind of make this transition. I always knew I wanted to be in entrepreneurship, never knew how soon, but we went to the National Black Association of Accountants conference. Every year they call it the NABA conference. And since I was the president, of course I had to attend. But one thing that we do is, the goal at that conference is to gain as many interviews with for the big four companies and other entities who are looking to hire accountants.
Okay.
So I was one of the people who didn't get not one interview.
Oh, wow.
So, I was livid. So on the way back, I had told my professor, I said, hey, what did it take to start an accounting firm? And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, what would it take? He was like, well, it'd take this. I was like, what if I wanted to do it now? He was like, well, why don't you start off doing taxes? First thing he told me. He was like, you can do that. I mean, you're taking tax course, you kind of passed that, so you should do that. So me and my partner at the time, we embarked on that future and on that venture, and then, it just kind of grew from there. Then one of my other professors had told me, I think you can do bookkeeping. So what ended up happening was we applied for a scholarship. I think it was through Warren Averett or Jackson Thorne, one of those companies. And the guy on my resume, you got to put down what your work experience is, kind of all these associations and organizations. And I just put down my company name, and then I put owner. So after the scholarship interview, I didn't get the scholarship, but he had asked me to stick around. And then he was like, "What?" He said, "Man, we all were kind of wondering why you put owner and then you put this company name. What was that about? We were asked for your employment history." And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And they were like, what do you mean? So I kind of explained to them what I was doing, and from that moment forward, he was like, look, man, he said, he said, if you are starting this now, you can go on and make a lot of money doing this. So I was like, okay. So that's what kind of forced me to kind of really go 10 toes down then. Kind of rewinded just a little bit further back. Before I came to ASU, my mom is an avid entrepreneur. We own real estate, own the laundromat, own the dry cleaners. So entrepreneurship has been in my blood since the beginning. I remember those days of going down to, abandoned buildings, looking at them. I used to ask my mom, my very first building, we walked in, literally no roof, downstairs was flooded, no walls, no bathroom. And I'm like, ain't nobody about to live in here. But it was those days of kind of getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because somebody's toilet had stopped up, getting dressed for school while we were in the car, and then I'm going straight to school after that. So that was I wouldn't say a routine, but that was the kind of the exposure that I knew, okay, this is the type of work you have to be willing to put in if you really want to be your own boss. So that's kind of what sparked and kind of fed that entrepreneur spirit in me, and it's just kind of grown ever since.
Well, man, that's amazing because I'm a firm believer in successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not. I think all too often, of course, we're in this microwave society now where everybody wants it now, and everybody shows, of course, on social media all of their wins.
Definitely.
We hear about what everybody's doing. We hear about the good days. We never hear about the bad. We never hear about that story of having to get up at 3 a.m., go to the property, fix the toilet, and then get on about your day and get started and still have a productive day after you literally just got finished unclogging the toilet.
There you go.
So
There you go.
and anybody who's ever been through that, I'm pretty sure we all have at some point in time or another, whether it was your own, whether you got kids or family members, we've all been through that experience. That should start off your day in the best fashion.
No, it doesn't.
But that's what entrepreneurship is. And that's the part that a lot of people don't understand and they don't get. They just want to get to the wins and don't understand. You're going to have to take some lumps.
Definitely. See, entrepreneurship is one thing that I think that a lot of people overlook, and you said it is kind of, they think of this instant gratification. Well, entrepreneurship is really about, sacrifice. Because you got to remember, it's a lot of people who are doing what we do and at a very high level, but they sacrificed a lot to get to where they were. Some good, some bad. So I think one thing that we don't stress enough, in particular, even in our own community as Black people, is that work-life balance. It's very hard trying to balance, being a business owner and being a family man, and being a great friend, being a great husband. It's always kind of, every ball is in the air, and at any given moment, if you step wrong, one of those balls drop. Yeah. So it's very important that, and even myself, I tell myself that quite often, I'm not as great at it as I need to be, but I'm definitely working on it, kind of creating that balance of, okay, on Saturday, it's okay if I don't answer the phone. That email will be fine to be answered on Monday. Yeah. So really kind of developing those, better habits as it relates to kind of the balance in life, I think will help that's the starting point from entrepreneurship. Yeah,
well, definitely. I mean, I'm all about, like I said, that's one thing I've been very adamant about is creating boundaries. Because I'm a workaholic and I, like I say, married now, but I started in my industry well before I was married, fresh out of college. So I had been used to a routine of work, and that was all I did. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden you get married and have kids and family, I got different responsibilities. So that was definitely one point in time early on in my marriage where I said, look, I'm not answering the phone after 5 o'clock. So I shut it down at 5 p.m. I don't answer the phone for clients after 5. And I feel like if I set this precedence now, it became the norm. But, there are those times where, of course, emergencies happen. And, because I think I set that tone early, my wife was able to see that and appreciate that I was trying to make a concerted effort to make sure that we had that time.
There you go.
That family time was important, that we had that quality time. And, now if I get a call after 5 and I answer it every now and then, she's okay because she knows the priority. Yeah. She knows that there are some priorities there that I'm trying to make, of course, and family is number one for me. But she knows what feeds the family as well.
There you go.
So, well, of course, like you said, it's a balancing act, and, nobody's perfect. We're all a work in progress, but those are things that I think we definitely we juggle with, because I always tell people, just from an entrepreneurship standpoint, it's like I said, in our community, we deal with a lot. And because we don't necessarily get the financial head start that a lot of communities have, we don't have that generational wealth where inheritance are being passed down. Like I said, when I got started in business, my father told me, good luck. It wasn't like I said, a small loan for $1 million, President Trump got handed, to get started. It was, good luck, and I'm here to support you any way I can. So a lot of times we're battling as, entrepreneurs and, being small business owners when you get started is you're trying to feed a family. Yep. You're trying to run a business, and then all of a sudden you're trying to grow a business. Yeah. Well, really, that's 3 separate incomes that you need to do those things. You need one income for your family, one income to actually maintain your business, and it's a whole separate income that you need to actually grow your business. And for me, this is why it's so important, that we have it here today, because I feel like, structuring the organization is an area that, of course, especially in our community, because we do, people do perish because of a lack of knowledge, and I see our businesses perishing because of a lack of knowledge. And obviously, nowadays I don't believe ignorance is not an excuse anymore.
That's true.
We have access to information. We have professionals like us, like yourself, that work in areas that I feel like we need help the most. So a lot of times now when I have clients come to me, I send them to you, before I even start working with them. I said, look, we got to get some order and some structure here first. We got to understand and create maybe a tax plan before we create a financial plan. We got to know how much you're going to have at the end of the day and how much I have to invest. So I say, you know what, you need to talk to Trevor first. And sometimes clients look at me like, we're not going to invest my money now? I'm like, no, because there's things that need to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing I definitely, you know, kind of want you to elaborate more on, man, is, you know, what do you see from a planning perspective? Because I feel like that's what we, you know, kind of lack the most in our community.
So definitely, one thing that I've kind of taken more of a deeper dive into lately, because I got a lot of clients, as you all know, since the pandemic, you know, everybody's been trying to rebound from a financing perspective, trying to figure out, hey, what's their next move business-wise, whether it's investing, buying real estate, private equity, whatever that may be. So the very first thing that I kind of want everybody to recognize is your business structure. A lot of people think that, hey, okay, I set up my LLC or I'm good, or I just got my EIN number, I'm fine. And it's like, well, no, there are additional steps that you need to look at. One thing in particular that I've been kind of hearing and coming into my office lately is a lot of lenders are getting people to sign what they call personal guarantors. And then what that essentially is saying is that, okay, you are on the hook for this debt in the event your business cannot continue to have it, can't continue to service the debt. But what that also does mean, okay, if you got the debt because of the business and the business dissolves or bankrupts or goes out of business, now you don't have the income to service that debt. So then now you're forced into a situation where you have to take a HELOC, borrow against your home, family and friends loans, etc., in order to service that debt or pay it off. So that's been kind of a trend that's been happening, in particular with those industries that have high startup costs, like trucking, anything where you have to buy a lot of equipment on the front end. So that's been one thing. So, you know, understanding kind of what your corporate structure is and kind of what it needs to be based on your industry is the first step you need to do. The second thing is kind of understanding what is required of your industry. When I say that, meaning no matter what state you're in, no matter what country you're in, there's a standard operating procedure on how to do business. And you want to make sure you get with people who can tell you what that is. And what I call them is a BEL team. So I did some consulting over at ASU in their Small Business Development Center. And Ms. Mosley, she would always mention this BEL team. And the BEL team is a banker, an accountant, an insurance agent, and a lawyer. If you have those four things on your team, what that does is puts you in a position to be able to say, okay, I have somebody to call now. I have somebody to reach out to help. And then what next thing you want to do is kind of look at what your tax situation will be. Like you said, you can't make an investment if you're not going to acknowledge your taxes. Because you're going to do two things. You're going to die and you're going to pay taxes in life. Those are the two guaranteed things.
Absolutely.
So the best thing you need to do is kind of say, okay, what does this do for me tax-wise? What does this do for my family? Because one thing what people fail to realize is if you're a married individual, you're filing a joint tax return. So when you're calculating what you may owe in taxes on your entrepreneur side, where you're not withholding taxes, you got to account for your spouse's income as well. So now that may bump you up an extra bracket or two from a tax perspective that you did not account for. And you come, and then when I tell you, hey, you owe, everybody looks at me like, no, I can't owe. That's not possible. I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, true, you made money because how did you make money? Your mortgage was paid, your car note was paid, the loans that you got were paid. Yeah, you probably didn't pay them in the way they should have been paid, like you paid them out of your business bank account, which you should not do. Instead, you should give yourself a W-2 or pay yourself in distributions. One thing that I tell all my clients is the first thing you need to pay is yourself. And when I say that, people look at me like the money's not there. I'm like, well, that's debatable. Let's take a look. And then we take a deeper dive into your financials to try to understand, okay, where are you spending your money? What impact does it have when you spend that money in that area? And then what gives you that greatest return? Because sometimes what we don't realize is we may say, okay, I'm going to pay all my bills right now. Now that puts you in a cash flow crunch. So now you have to make a decision on, okay, do I go get this line of credit? Do I get this debt? Do I get this short-term note? Instead of looking at it and saying, okay, if I look at all of my bills and then just start piecing them off and paying them, that extends your cash flow. See, the value of the dollar has way more value in your bank account than it does in yours. So that's why the goal is to make sure you can retain as much cash as you can, leverage your credit, and then continue going.
Okay. Well, man, I mean, that's definitely was a lot of great information. I mean, you know, me as a business owner, I'm definitely taking those nuggets away, and of course, I'm utilizing it myself as he's of course been assisting me and helping me put some things together. Because I constantly, you know, do a self check, and I think everybody should. I think that's one area where, especially as men, we lack as far as, you know, seeking professional help, asking questions, not being afraid to say I don't know. I tell people all the time, I never believe in being a jack of all trades and master of none. I'm a master in what I do because I truly believe that if you're skillful in your work, you'll be placed before great men. But also that means it's taking personal accountability and understanding that I don't have to be great in all areas. I'm great in my area, and God will place me before someone is great in their area, and they can help me and help me assist more people. Be back with you in a minute. Welcome to Hamilton Wealth Advisors, where our goal is to change the financial landscape of the African American community by providing the best of the best in financial professionals to help close the gap on financial wellness, wealth creation, and wealth transference. We're continuing to expand and grow our reach and add qualified advisors to our team. Help us to teach our community how to create generational wealth. We're looking for passionate, selfless, and professional advisors that pride themselves in the core beliefs that education plus expertise leads to proper execution. So if you think this opportunity may be for you, ask yourself this question: what is your why? And if the answer is you want to be a professional, successful advisor that makes a positive impact in the lives of all you come into contact with, contact us about joining our team today. As we look to move forward, continue to be a blessing to those who would never come into contact with by creating a successful financial plan today. Welcome back to Closing the Gap, the truth about black wealth. Of course, I'm here today with my man, Mr. Trevor Small. He's delivering a lot of great knowledge and great information. Definitely thankful and blessed to have him today sharing that wisdom with us. And, we're going to kick it back off and jump right back into it, man. And, one of the things we were just kind of talking about in the previous segments is kind of, there were kind of some buzzwords, for me, and some bells started ringing off in my head when I started hearing you say certain things. Of course, coming out of the pandemic and kind of where we are from a economic perspective, and of course, we're seeing the awareness in the African American community grow.
Yeah.
We're seeing a growth in people desiring financial literacy and wanting information and wanting to be entrepreneurs and wanting to be business owners. So, all those things are positive. When people want more, it's a great thing. But also, there are a lot of wolves disguised in sheep's clothing right now. And we see a lot of them on social media. And I know we've had these conversations on many occasions talking about people that I feel like are, leading our people to slaughter.
Yeah.
They're selling dreams and selling hopes. And really, in hopes of lining their own personal pockets, not really thinking about the greater good of where it's going to lead a lot of these people. And I know you see that firsthand. And we were talking about it, all the kind of the free money that's kind of floated out to entrepreneurs and people who had an LLC and became short-term business owners when the pandemic hit. Of course, EIDL money, PPP loans, all these things, came about, and all of a sudden you hear so many people want to, start trucking companies. So many people, got into Turo and started buying cars, and I'm gonna turn into a leasing company and lease cars, short-term rentals and things of that nature. And a lot of people all of a sudden want to jump into real estate and want to acquire properties and rent out properties and Airbnb, and all those things are good. There's nothing wrong with any of those, but like I said, people perish due to lack of knowledge, not having the right team around you to prepare you for what's to come. And I know you're seeing it first and foremost. I know the deadline for extended deadline for taxes just passed here a little while ago. So I know you've been kind of working, knee deep in it, with clients trying to help them get out of some bad situations. But, tell me, what have you seen over the last couple of years as, awareness has somewhat grown, but there's still a lack of knowledge and execution that's kind of, taking place?
So one thing that I have learned just over the last 3 years is us as black people, we're new to a lot of things in business. We understand, we know what business is, but we're new to some of the moving pieces in it. When you look at a vehicle, it's so many pieces in the car that makes it move. Mm-hmm. But there's so many things we don't see inside the motor, the bolts, the bearings, of how they contribute to the complexity of the automobile. And the same thing about business. We understand, yes, we got to make money. Yes, we got to pay some bills. Mm-hmm. And we got to have some level of a staff. Some of us believe that and some of us don't. But we're new to business overall. So like you just mentioned, we had this thing that came out. I call them the pandemicpreneurs. Those are my entrepreneurs who started during the pandemic. So we want to see, hey, are you really going to last? It's good to start when everything's down. That's the best time to start doing anything. Yep. Like they say, the best time to plant a tree is not yesterday, it's today. So it's great that we had all this ambition that kind of flowed through the black community of wanting to contribute to, society and grow and kind of support their families. But then we also paired with the pandemicpreneurs, we had edutainment. And that was the entertainment kind of encompassed with education, which is good. It in doses.
Yeah.
Like anything else. It
Small
was like,
doses.
there you go, very small doses, because I had so many people who were like, hey, I started my LLC. I'm about to go buy the G-Wagon. Or I'm about to go do this. I'm going to put this in my business credit. I'm going to do this in my business name. And I'm like, well, pause. Like, what do you do first? Oh, yeah, I got a trucking company. Okay. How is the G-Wagon necessary? Is that a necessary expense for you? Do you need the G-Wagon in order to operate your business? First off, and not to mention, how are you going to pay a $1,800 note when you're not even making money as a company? That's a red flag immediately. You can't go and say, hey, I'm going to spend, $110,000 on a car, but yet you only making $60,000 a year.
Yeah, with the insurance on that car.
Exactly.
The insurance on that truck.
Exactly. So now that's the one thing that I have to always educate my entrepreneurs when it comes to them coming in to kind of do their tax plan, is understanding this needs to make sense. You can't make $60,000 a year and say you're going to have this G-Wagon expense. Unfortunately, you got to go to the Toyota. You got to go to the Chevy. Ain't nothing wrong with that, though. Mm-hmm. That's okay if you really in business to do business. Absolutely. For the benefit of you and your family. So what we also have to look at is the travel expense. I have a lot of clients who travel. A lot of them. And they like to travel Friday to Sunday. And I always have to tell them Saturday and Sunday are not deductible unless you wrap your travel. That's one thing a lot of people don't realize. Whenever I fly out anywhere, I always fly out 6 a.m. on Thursday or Friday, and I come back Monday or Tuesday. You wrap the travel into your business week. So now that makes the trip now deductible. See, so that's called what I would call, say, audit proofing your records. Kind of making sure that you're putting things in a box where if there's ever a question, it's like, boom, here it is. When you show the itinerary, you show it, you're leaving it early. Because what you have to do is make a work day out of one or two of those days of when you travel. If you don't, then you lose the deductibility of the expense. See, so there are those little things where when you kind of talk to a tax strategist and create a tax plan, that they help you understand. The one thing that I hate, and any accountant will tell you this, don't come to me January 1 saying I need to save for my taxes on April 15th.
Too late.
It is way too late. There are very few things you can do. Are there some things? Yes, but it's not a whole lot. So planning is always the key to any level of success. Me making sure that, hey, you understand, we plan a year out for the following year. Yeah. That's one thing that a lot of people miss. They always think, hey, let me just go into this guy's office, dump these boxes of receipts on him, and then, hey, he should be able to make magic. I'm not a genie. I can't grant all the wishes.
Yeah, I tell them all the time, I can't turn water into wine.
There you go.
Jesus. I can help as much as possible, but I can't turn water into wine. I mean, I'm thankful and blessed today because I just learned something new. I'm pretty good about separating mine, but I mean my business travel obviously is always during the week naturally, and weekends, like I said, just weekends. But I didn't know that rule. Yeah. So that's just a nugget for me, and if it's a nugget for me, I'm pretty sure it's a nugget for you as well. One thing we've talked about in the past, and I mean one thing you're big on is some of your key phrases, and one thing I love is that is that everybody eats. Yeah. So tell the people a little bit more about how everybody eats, man.
Yeah. So that came about. One of my favorite movies, Paid in Full. Okay. And in the movie, one of the characters, he made sure that everybody in his circle had a piece of the pie. He made sure, like, look, I know I got this pie, but I'm gonna break this pie down so everybody kind of takes accountability and can kind of take care of their families off of it. Granted, the means in which they were doing, I would not suggest, but the concept still makes sense no matter where you apply it. So one thing that I make sure in my circle is everybody has access to information and has access to the same resources that I do. I don't give out anything. Everything is earned. So I'm real big on, okay, if you do this, you do this, you do this, we shooting all this to you. We gonna shoot all this to you. And we not gonna complain about it. So everybody eats, because it's no fun if you make it to the top and ain't nobody there to enjoy it with you.
And no fun if you going on vacation and ain't nobody can take the trip.
Exactly.
You want to be able to go on that vacation and have your friends, your boys, your family members, brothers, sisters be able to go with you and enjoy that trip and make it an event.
Definitely. Because see, one thing I understand, everybody that come with you can't go with you.
Absolutely.
But there are definitely some people who can. You know, I seen a post on social media that said it was talking about having friends from back in the day and how you kind of maintain those relationships. And this girl said sometimes Keisha from 6th grade just ain't cutting it as a friend. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and that resonated with me because I was like, you know, it's true, because sometimes you don't intentionally outgrow your friends. It just kind of organically happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that don't mean you don't like them anymore. Yeah. It just means, hey, you know, I'm making certain moves. I'm kind of, like you said, I'm setting up certain boundaries for myself, for my level of success. And it's not that you just don't fit in that today, like right this minute. That don't mean at some point you won't. Mm-hmm. So I'm real big on kind of making sure that access to information, everybody gets it so everybody can eat. And ultimately what I want to do is kind of create that into its own platform where I can give out free information, have a knowledge center, and kind of a way to really take some of the accounting jargon around business and kind of just make it in lamest terms. So that's the goal of Everybody Eats. It's a phrase that I've been saying probably since I've seen the movie, throughout my whole entire life. So it just kind of came to me, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can really develop something around that and make that go.
And one thing that you said is kind of, you know, ringing off in my head is that it's something I truly believe that, you know, successful people share one common trait, if none else. They share a common trait of service.
That's true.
You know, what I'm hearing is service. You're helping people, you're educating people, you want to give back to people. And that's one thing I think that people don't understand is that the more you give, the more you shall receive.
That's true.
But it's hard for a lot of people to get over the hump and learn to be okay giving. Because when you don't have, there's a fear of, if I give it, when am I going to get it back? But, you know, like we're going to probably talk about in our next segment, I mean, that's where the faith part comes in. You got to trust God that, you know, when I give, his rule is going to ring true and it's going to come back to me. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how. But like we always heard growing up, you know, he may not come when you want it, but he always on time. I mean, I think everybody at some point in time in their life has been a living witness to that. And I think that's where we have to learn to trust a little bit more, but understand that, you know, if you truly want to be successful in business, you have to have a servant's heart first.
See, that's what they call it, a leap of faith. I mean, whenever you start a business, you're taking a leap of faith.
Absolutely.
You got to remember, as far as you're concerned, there's no safety net down there. But unfortunately, I mean, when you're very spiritually based and have a sound spiritual foundation, you then know that safety net is Jesus Christ himself. So when you take that leap of faith, when you jump off the porch, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, nobody knew if the business would succeed. Yeah. Nobody knew that the product would kind of scale. Nobody knew Uber would be what it is as quick as it was. Nobody truly knew Facebook was. Somebody had to have a certain level of faith in order to say, yes, I'm going to take this jump. And I think that's one thing as entrepreneurs we don't spend enough time on. Even us as coaches, strategists, consultants, advisors, we don't spend enough time trying to embed some level of faith into those entrepreneurs, because that's very important. That's one thing that I kind of pride myself on, is I've always had faith that everything I'm doing is something that God has given me the God-given talent to do. You know, not burying those talents.
You know, it was kind of, you know, it's kind of crazy, but it's amazing. And I'm truly one of those people that truly believes that, like I said, that man is skillful in works can be placed before great men. And, you know, people always ask, you know, like you're talking about with friendships, you grow with certain people and sometimes you outgrow them and you evolve past them. And I used to always wonder, you know, when will the next person come into my life to be able to help me based on where I'm at? But God has always showed up and brought someone new into my life, or he's evolved someone from the past that was in my life into a new version of themselves that can now play a role in my life in a different way that I may have never saw in the past. So it's always refreshing to hear, you know, people that are operating in different areas of business, but have the same common core goals and beliefs. Because for me, I have a saying: if I'm not growing, I'm going.
There you go.
You know, if you're not, helping me and not helping me from just a financial standpoint, but if you're not imparting some level of wisdom, structure, some level of positive energy into my life, I don't associate with you.
Sure.
And the funny thing is, people know that about me. I got friends that have been, friends with me from, junior high, 6, 7, 8 years old, all throughout the course of my life. And a lot of them, they don't call me very often. And it's not because we're not friends anymore. It's just because they understand where I'm at.
There you go.
They understand how I move. So it's always like, man, I was going to get called, but I know you was working. I know you was on the go. I know, and really what they're saying is, I didn't have anything of value necessarily to add to you at this particular point in time. And I know you're not about wasting your time. So I didn't want to just bother you with nothing. But I'm here if you need me. And it's always good and refreshing to, me pick up the phone and contact them, and they, send me a text or give me a call every now and then. But those conversations are, few and far between. But then God brings other people into my life that I may have known for a much shorter period of time, but they're adding so much more value based on where I'm at right now. They're able to pour into me because obviously as entrepreneurs, as business owners, when you're servants, you spend so much of your time pouring into people. Mm-hmm. You're giving so much of yourself to your clients, your knowledge, your wisdom, your spiritual, emotional energy, into the clients that you're working with. And it's good to see when God places other people in your life that can pour that same back into you, and it refreshes you and energizes you. This is why for me, I love doing Closing the Gap. The truth about black wealth is always, and people are constantly asking me, man, what's the key? What's the key? What's the key? And I always tell them back, man, it's trust.
There you go.
Just trust in God, and that He's going to bring what you need when you need it. And that's, I feel like, the biggest element missing from our community today is that we have a lack of trust. And that lack of trust comes from a lack of faith. See you in a minute. Welcome back to Closing the Gap, the truth about black wealth. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. I'm here today. This is, of course, a new segment we kicked off on our last episode called Pastor's Perspective. Of course, we have Brother Eddie Richardson here. Of course, he's going to be sharing some knowledge and wisdom here, giving us that spiritual word that we all need to, not just in our personal life, but also in our business life. I mean, it's one area where I feel like, obviously, people try to separate business and faith, but I feel like they go hand in hand because if you have, you operate a certain way in your personal life, you're going to operate similarly in your business life. I had a great man once told me, he said, Wilbert, as long as you keep your character right personally, you never have a problem in your business. But as soon as you corrupt your character personally, it will automatically affect your business no matter how good you are at doing that particular job. So that's something for all of us to keep, our core beliefs and our morals and values, and let God be your guide and light, helping us move forward and close the wealth gap here in our community. So been having a wonderful day here with Trevor sharing a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And we're going to kind of jump back into it, man, to keep giving you some great content that hopefully you can take and use and, impart into yourself and others around you to hopefully, help close this wealth gap. So, brother, thank you for being here today, man, and, blessed and highly favored. So, I'm going to kick it off to you, man, and, for the start of, Pastor's Perspective.
Hey, man, well, appreciate you again, brother, and thank you for creating this segment for us to continue to share ways that we can close the gap in wealth, but also realizing that in any gap that God is one that only allows us to close the gap, and He is the only one that has given us the gifts and talents that we have to do the things that we are able to do. So I've truly been blessed thus far with our discussion with Brother Trevor, and thank you, Brother Trevor, for coming and sharing the wisdom and the knowledge that you have, and definitely sound like a man that is wise in his years and a man that is wise beyond his years. So I definitely hear, the gift that God has given you, and it's a blessing. This morning I was reading 1 Peter chapter 4, and it talked about, Peter was talking about how God has blessed us with various gifts and allows us to use them to serve others. And so just based on what you already have shared, I can tell that you've been utilizing the gifts that God has given you to share, because man, you already blessed me, and made me check some things about my business structure as well. So when we talk about the faith, and you all started off closing about taking a leap of faith, and I heard you talk about how with your mother and entrepreneurship that you had, and then you said something earlier about being in a partnership. So if you could tell us a little bit about how God guided you through the entrepreneurship walk that your mother showed you, but then also in the partnership that it sounds like either you have or you once had, like what caused you to keep it or separate it? Because you said earlier about what the social media post that you saw, that hey, Keisha from 6th grade might not be valuable to keep around you right now. So it sounds like you may have been in a partnership and got out of it. So if you kind of touch on those from a faith perspective.
Yeah, me and my partner, we were together probably for about 10 years, and we just had different directions that we wanted to go in, which was okay. We both understood, what we were embarked on. Everything has its course and runs its course. And then we just kind of separated, but we still talk. We still have some other business dealings outside of Alabama that we still kind of do. So our kids are similar in age. So yeah, whenever you just have to acknowledge that. And one thing that I've learned is us as Black people, we have a tendency sometimes to just hold on to the very end. And instead of just saying, you know what, it was fun. We enjoyed it. Let's just keep the good memories, and then kind of still enjoy each other's presence and still be able to pour back and forth into each other as needed. As it relates to my mom, she made sure at our house, we were not that family that went to church every Sunday, but she made sure God was at the forefront of our life, or in my life, because I'm the only child. So that was one thing. But my aunt, she is a pastor, and my uncle is a pastor. So based off them, as well as I'll never forget when they started their ministry. It started in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. We have park districts, and our park districts have these centers in which you kind of can commune in, community centers essentially. And literally, we was in the projects at this community center, and they having church, like real church, with folding tables and folding chairs, kids running outside, in and out the door. And I'm like, this can't be for real. But when you see those humble beginnings and truly seeing them have the level of faith in what they were doing, and then now see the advancement that they made, it was almost innately in me to say, you know what? I mean, if I fail, at least I learned something at the end of the day. And that's one of the things that I think we have to always remember is failure is an opportunity to learn. As you said, you were coming from Peter and just kind of talking about Peter a little bit. I mean, Peter cut a man's ear off. And Jesus had to tell him, hold on, man, you can't do that. And put it back on. He had to let him know, like, it's a way to do this. So sometimes we have a tendency to just jump with no real faith. And then in turn, that leads to us kind of being detrimental. That's one thing that I've always, DMX said, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And the Bible says that as well, but he never said the weapon wouldn't be formed. So for me, my faith is very big in my marriage, with my children, and in my business. I have 3 daughters. I'm a girl dad in every sense of the word.
Same here, bro. 3 daughters as well.
I got 3 sons, so I get that.
Right. So being a girl dad, it almost forces you into a level of patience that you almost didn't even think you had. So spiritually for me, and then especially with my current pastor, Marcella Harrison, it's very big on, and I tell all my clients, if you don't have the faith, I can't have the faith for you. So faith and business for me kind of go hand in hand, because you never know what tomorrow will hold.
That's good, man.
Well, man, I took that leap a long time ago. I tell people all the time, I've never had a salary. Don't know what that look like. Don't know what that feel like. So I'm one of the people that I ain't even look before I leaped. I just leaped, and just say, you know what, I'm gonna trust God that this is gonna work out. But when I look back, the steps were ordered. It's a many called, few are chosen. I was blessed, and I know I was chosen to do what I'm doing. God has revealed to me, look, this is what I want you to do. I want you to teach people how to create generational wealth. I want you to teach my community how to create generational wealth. And my level of understanding of what he meant by his community has changed. It's evolved. It's grown. Because, we all understand things on our level. But as we grow and as we evolve, we start to understand that, I can read that same passage again and take something completely different from it. And that the ending of it and what I'm seeing is start to evolve. So, for me, I've been, faith first. From day one. When I tell people, I told my dad I was gonna be a financial advisor, I was gonna, talk to black people about money. He said, you don't know about that. That's some showed up faith right there, because that ain't something that we do. So a lot of times people tell me I probably picked the hardest profession you could possibly have, because a lot of what I deal with is intangible.
That's true.
It's having to understand people, is having to, be able to communicate with people, is having people to see something that they can't see, which is directly what faith is. The substance of something not seen, but you can feel it. And feeling is greater than seeing it a lot of times. There's a lot of people, like I said, some blind people, they can't see, but they can show no feel.
Definitely, because think about it like this. When I talked about that build team, and that's really important in entrepreneurship when you're scaling a business, growing a business, starting a business. Jesus had a team, and that was the disciples. But a lot of people don't realize, when you kind of take a deeper dive into who the disciples are, they were experts in what they did. And when I say experts, meaning they were at the top of their game, making as much money, had enough riches, enough land, enough resources to do whatever they wanted to do. But what did they do? They turned it all over and said, look, we just gonna walk with you. So just imagine when you put that in the context of business, it's the same philosophy when you start. They sold off everything they had just to go walk with a man, and people thought they was crazy. But they had the faith, and they knew, okay, he is going to provide for us. We are following in the son's steps. So when you do that, yes, there will be criticism, but as long as you maintain your faith, the harvest will come. So I'm a firm believer in those biblical principles. And for me, the spiritual journey that I'm on is not necessarily kind of reading the Bible every day. But what I do is I'm trying to take a deeper dive into who the people were in the Bible. What did they do? What is their background? What was their profession? Who were they married to? What were their children like? So to see them as human beings, and then being able to translate that to say, oh, okay, so that's what God's purpose for them was.
Yeah, that's excellent, Brother Trevor, because as we talked about, and you just said about being experts, and you want to take a deeper dive into the Bible and identifying these people in the Bible and seeing them as human, and then possibly taking how God utilized them to minister to his people. I think we all had that type of responsibility when we are, because God has given us these gifts, as I talked about earlier, and he did not give us these gifts just for ourselves, but to utilize them in the family and in our businesses that we're in. And so a lot of times here on the podcast, Wilbert is always talking about, about being a priest of the home, and that also extends that God has made us priests in our home, but also priests over the gifts that he's given us. And we also, many of the people that watch podcasts always hear talk about people perish for the lack of knowledge. And that text comes out of Hosea chapter 4, and specifically verse 6. But in that chapter, God is basically speaking to the priests, the people of Israel, and he is upset with them because they have not taken full responsibility to be the experts that he has taught them to be, and to take care of his people as he has told them to take care of them. And so he basically lays out an indictment against them, in the beginning, and then you get to verse 6, and he talks about, my people are perishing for a lack of knowledge, because you, the priests, are withholding the knowledge and withholding taking care of your responsibilities and withholding exercising the gifts that I have given you And so that's a blessing to hear you say that. And I think those people that will watch and tune in to the podcast, I want you all to understand that what Trevor is saying is definitely true scripturally wise, because we all had that responsibility, not only to ourselves and not only to our family, but most importantly, we had that responsibility to God. Because God is the one that has blessed us to have life. He is the one that has blessed us to be able to have whatever family style we have, whether we have 3 daughters like Trevor and myself, or like Wilbur and had 3 sons, or even if there's somebody that does not have children, cannot have children, or whatever the case may be, wherever we are in life, God has allowed us to be the priests in that space that we're in. And so we all need to just make sure that we hold ourselves responsible and accountable to God in whatever He's given us in when we exercise these things. And that's how we can help close the gap in anything in life, is to realize who gave it to us in the first place.
Definitely. I want to make sure that my entrepreneurs and my businesses and my CEOs who are C-suites understand that, us who are execs and who are entrepreneurs, we're wired differently. We're chasing a level of perfection one way or another, but understand that does not exist. Perfection is one of those things that one person only was able to do, and that was Jesus Christ Himself. So understanding that, yes, our job is to strive to be and walk like Jesus Himself, but that is also why grace came into the picture, is because God started to notice, wait a minute, I can't keep killing them every time they mess up. Sodom and Gomorrah can't happen to every single era of people. And when Jesus died on the cross, and He kind of let God know, look, some people are trying, but they falling short. That's why He died on the cross for us. That's why He bled for us. So understanding that chasing perfection is just a circle you will continue to run in. It's just always looking for growth. Growth is the way you want to go. You want to grow up, not in around. So making sure that you're taking those steps to say, okay, what can I do better today in my business or in my life than what I did yesterday?
Man, I'm truly blessed to be surrounded by some greatness today, man. I've been fed, I've been blessed. I've gotten the word from both of these brothers. I'm thankful, and I know you have too. I mean, for me, it's I heard a call to action to men. Men, we have to, assume our roles and titles of setting the tone. Being the head of the house. Not that doesn't mean being a dictator, but it does mean leading. I truly believe, like these brothers said, as a man, you're meant to be protector, provider, prophet, and priest over your home. And now those are different jobs, different roles, responsibilities, but we all have those roles. If you have kids, you need to prophesy into your kids, speak life into your kids, into your wife, into your life. Like this gentleman just spoke on being, priests. You all have these roles, responsibilities, along with, of course, being protectors and providers. I think a lot of times we like to, culturally, speak on maybe the protector and provider part a little bit more than obviously being the prophet and the priest, but we need all of it. And like, brother just said, we need to, close the wealth gap. And close the wealth gap is not just about, money. We can close the wealth gap through, growing ourselves closer to God. We can close the wealth gap by, creating stronger families, because, that has been probably the biggest destruction that we've had in our community over the last 50, 60, 70 years. There's been a systematic, attack on the black family, and specifically the black man in the black family. When you go back to, the welfare benefits, and, when project housing was started, and of course they wanted to get the man out of the house in order for the woman to be able to stay in the projects and receive those welfare benefits. That's a systematic destruction and ideology that we have in our community, and we have to address that. These two brothers that spoke eloquently, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I've been thankful, and I am thankful for them. I've been blessed today, by them, and I know you have too. See you next time.